Rain tapped gently against the windows of a small, quiet cafe tucked in the heart of downtown Chicago. Inside, the aroma of fresh coffee lingered in the warm air, offering comfort against the gray morning. Jake, a 26-year-old construction worker, stood in line behind a woman who looked like she belonged in a corner office, not this little cafe. She wore a tailored coat, heels, and carried a designer purse, but her face was tense, lost in thought, disconnected from her surroundings. When it was her turn, she ordered her drink with a distant voice and reached into her bag. She fumbled, tried another card, then another. The barista waited awkwardly before saying, "Sorry, your card's declined." The woman froze, her poise suddenly cracking. There was a beat of silence in the cafe. People turned away, trying not to stare. But Jake didn't. Without thinking twice, he stepped forward. "Add her coffee to mine," he said, his voice calm and sure. The barista nodded. The woman turned to him, her eyes wide with surprise. "You didn't have to do that," she said, half embarrassed, half moved. Jake offered a small shrug and smiled. "You looked like you needed it more than I did." He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He didn't know who she was, and he didn't care. He just saw a person having a rough morning and did what he wished someone would have done for him when life got heavy. His hands were rough from years of labor, but his heart, untouched by pride or expectation, was soft. That simple moment, unnoticed by most, sparked something bigger than either of them could have imagined. A gesture costing just a few dollars would become the turning point in both their lives. The rain slid down the cafe window like tears no one had the courage to shed. Claire, still holding her untouched coffee, asked Jake if she could sit with him. He hesitated for a second, surprised, but nodded. They found a small table by the window, just out of earshot from the rest of the room. For a while, they just sat, watching the streets blur through the rain, two strangers wrapped in a quiet moment neither of them expected. Claire was graceful but clearly shaken. She held herself like someone used to being in control but now just barely holding it together. She introduced herself only as Claire, no last name, no title. Jake didn't press. He talked about working on construction sites during the day and washing dishes at night, scraping together what he could to help his little sister finish high school without worrying about rent. He mentioned saving up for community college, though slowly. He laughed at how long it was taking, but there was no bitterness in his voice, just honesty. Claire listened closely, like every word he spoke mattered. There was something calming in his presence, something solid. "Why'd you help me?" she asked, her voice softer now. Jake smiled, a tired but warm expression. "I've been where you are. When the world feels cold, a little kindness makes it bearable." Claire looked away for a second, blinking fast. "More than you know," she whispered. In that brief, simple conversation, something shifted. Two people from completely different worlds shared a table, but it wasn't their differences that mattered, it was the silent understanding between them. No masks. No ego. Just humanity. A spark of connection that neither money nor status could ever buy. Jake rose from the table with a smile, the kind that said he didn't expect anything in return. "Take care of yourself, Claire," he said as he stepped into the rain without an umbrella. Claire watched him walk away, his jacket already soaked, his shoulders hunched slightly against the chill. There was something humbling in his exit, quiet, unbothered, like he was used to braving storms, both weather and life alike. She sat frozen, her hands wrapped tightly around the warm cup. Her eyes didn't leave him until he disappeared into the mist. Then she reached into her coat pocket, pulled out her phone, and with a trembling voice said, "Cancel all my meetings. I need to do something." The assistant on the other end tried to respond, but Claire had already ended the call. She stood, moving with urgency, stepping outside into the drizzle. The rain hit her face, mixing with the tears she didn't bother to wipe. Walking past the rows of parked cars, she found her sleek black Tesla, pristine, untouched by the chaos within her. She slid into the driver's seat and sat in silence, breathing hard. It wasn't the embarrassment of a declined card that haunted her. That moment at the counter wasn't some financial hiccup, it was symbolic. Hours earlier, Claire had been betrayed, voted out by the very board she'd once built, stripped of the company she'd poured her soul into. A decade of sacrifice erased in a conference room by men who smiled while they pushed her out. She hadn't cried. Not then. But now, a stranger with rough hands and a soft voice had reminded her that compassion still existed. No agenda. No ego. Just kindness for its own sake. And in that, she found something her boardroom had long forgotten: humanity. The sun beat down on the job site as Jake wiped sweat from his brow, hammer in hand, steel-toed boots caked in dust. The day was like any other, long, loud, and unforgiving. He was mid-swing when his phone buzzed in his pocket. A private number. For a moment, he considered ignoring it, but something made him pick up. "Hello?" he answered, catching his breath. "Jake? It's Claire." He paused, instantly recognizing her voice. "Claire? Hey, everything okay?" There was a soft laugh on the other end, a different tone than before, lighter, more at peace. "Better than okay. I've been thinking about our conversation, about you. What you did for me that day, it mattered. You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask for anything. You just helped." Jake leaned against a stack of lumber, confused but listening. "I didn't tell you the full truth," she continued. "I'm the founder of a tech company. Or at least, I was. I lost it last week. Betrayed by the people I trusted most. I was at my lowest when you bought that coffee. But your kindness reminded me of something I'd forgotten, who I used to be before success made me hard." Jake was quiet. "I'm sorry that happened to you," he said sincerely. "I'm not," she replied. "Because it led me to you. And I want to offer you something. My foundation will cover your tuition, books, everything. You deserve a chance to build the life you've been fighting for." He blinked, stunned, heart pounding. I don't know what to say." "Just promise me one thing," she said gently. "Someday, when you're able, pay it forward." Jake looked up at the sky, eyes stinging. He didn't have words. But in that moment, he knew his life had just changed forever. The same cozy cafe, 2 years later, buzzed with quiet conversation and the comforting hiss of steamed milk. Outside, the sky drizzled softly, just like it had that morning 2 years ago. But inside, everything had changed. Jake stood at the counter, no longer in worn boots and dusty jeans. He wore a crisp navy blazer, slacks, and polished shoes. His hands, once rough from labor, now held a leather briefcase. But his eyes, they still held the same warmth. Ahead of him, a young man in a wrinkled hoodie nervously tapped his card against the reader. "Sorry, it's declined," the barista said politely. The young man fumbled for another, cheeks flushed red. Jake stepped forward without hesitation. "Add his coffee to mine," he said with a smile. The young man looked at him, stunned. "Are you sure?" Jake handed over the cup. "Don't worry about it," he said gently. "I've been there." From a quiet corner table, Claire sat with her laptop, sipping her drink. She watched the exchange with a quiet smile, her heart full. Dressed casually, her presence didn't command attention like it used to. But in that moment, she didn't need to. She saw it: Jake had become the man he was always meant to be. The act that once changed his life was now being passed on, unprompted, without cameras or applause. Just one human recognizing another's need, and stepping in. As the young man left, coffee in hand and a little more hope in his step, Claire leaned back and breathed in the moment. Voiceover style line. One small act of compassion can ripple through lives and rewrite destinies. Be that spark. This story is a quiet but powerful reminder that kindness is never wasted. A small, selfless gesture, a simple cup of coffee, became the catalyst for healing, transformation, and a chain of generosity that continued beyond that single moment. Jake, a man struggling with life's burdens, extended compassion without expecting anything in return. Claire, a woman who seemed to have it all but had just lost everything, rediscovered her purpose through his humility and warmth. What began as a moment of quiet empathy in a rainy cafe evolved into a life-changing opportunity for both of them. Jake's act didn't just restore Claire's faith in humanity, it reminded her of the leader she once aspired to be. And in turn, Claire gave Jake the one thing he had always lacked, a chance. 2 years later, that simple kindness had come full circle. Jake, now standing tall in a life he built with Claire's help, chose to carry that compassion forward. The world didn't change overnight, but in that cafe, in that moment, one life touched another, and another. That's how true change begins. It's not the size of the act, but the heart behind it. Because when kindness is passed on, it doesn't end, it echoes.